The moment you dive into the field manuals, after-action reports and personal diaries from the Second World War, you start to realize something most viewers never think about. Navigation wasn't just a skill, it was survival. Soldiers didn't always have the luxury of maps that were accurate, compasses that were reliable, or radios that worked when they needed them most. Before we jump into the deeper layers of this guide, let me ask you directly. If you're watching this on the Legacy of Survival channel, make sure you're subscribed, because these long-form breakdowns take hours of research, and I want you to have every advantage other viewers miss. You're here because you love real history, not the watered-down version. And I want this first minute to pull you straight into the terrain those soldiers walked, crawled, and fought across. Navigation wasn't glamorous. It was cold calculations in darkness. It was counting every step when shells were landing nearby. It was trusting your senses more than any tool issued to you. And if you got it wrong, your entire squad paid the price. That's why these 7 navigation secrets mattered then. And, well, why they're still worth learning today. They're not loose trivia. They're lessons in awareness, precision, and survival. So let's get into them. One of the core secrets was how soldiers used pacing to measure distance when instruments failed. In forests, cities, and blown-open terrain, pacing, literally counting every step to maintain bearings, kept troops oriented when maps became irrelevant. Infantrymen trained until they knew exactly how many of their strides equaled 100 meters, even accounting for heavy packs, fatigue, and mud. In practice, a soldier moving from a destroyed crossroads to a rendezvous point might whisper numbers under his breath, adjusting for slope or debris. Modern hikers and survivalists still use this method. You can apply it on your next trek by measuring how many steps you take per 100 meters on flat uphill and downhill terrain and memorizing the variations. It's a skill that, once locked in, becomes part of your internal compass. Another secret was how they used terrain association when maps were outdated or misleading. European maps from the 1930s often failed to reflect bomb craters, burned villages, or new makeshift roads. Soldiers learned to match the land to the map, not the map to the land. A hedgerow line, a ridge shape, a bend in a river. Those became the real guides. A platoon leader advancing at night might navigate by the angle a hill cut against the skyline or the contour under his boots. Today, if you're ever working with imperfect maps or satellite images, this same principle applies. Training yourself to read terrain shapes, not just icons on paper, gives you situational awareness that technology can't replace. They relied on celestial navigation far more than most people assume. When compasses malfunctioned from damage, magnetization, or shrapnel interference, soldiers used the North Star, constellation positions, or moon angles to find direction. Sailors and pilots were trained, of course, but infantry used it in rougher, improvised ways. For example, troops moving across desert environments in North Africa often oriented themselves by the arc of the stars because the landscape offered almost no visual markers. For your own use, learning the fixed position of Polaris or how Orion rises and sets allows you to maintain direction even if your equipment dies. This skill, requires repetition, but soldiers proved it works under the worst pressure imaginable. A lesser-known technique was how troops used sound and smell to orient themselves in fog or darkness. Artillery thunder carries differently depending on distance and terrain. Soldiers learned to judge how close units were by echo patterns, allowing them to triangulate front lines or enemy positions. In dense fog, burning rubber, cordite or campfire smoke often revealed proximity to roads or villages. This wasn't mystical instinct, it was honed observation. A practical modern application is, training yourself to identify environmental cues when visibility drops. It's not as simple as just listening. It's about building a mental map that updates with every sound or scent, They also used linear features, things like roads, fences, power lines and canals, to re-establish their bearings when disoriented. These were called handrails, and honestly they functioned much like their name suggests. If a patrol veered off course, reaching a known linear feature instantly corrected their path. In urban combat, a single long wall or an intact railway line could be the difference between regrouping and, getting lost behind enemy lines. When you're out in the field today, you can replicate this by identifying long, unmistakable features on your route and using them as anchors. Even a creek bed can serve as your lifeline if everything else goes wrong. One of the more fascinating secrets was how soldiers used shadows during the day when compasses were unreliable. By marking the tip of a shadow, waiting a few minutes, then marking it again, they created a baseline showing east-west direction. It was simple, nearly universal, and almost impossible to sabotage. And finally, they mastered dead reckoning, the art of predicting location by combining speed, direction, and elapsed time. Every movement became a calculation. How long it took to cross a field, how far they drifted off course under fire, how much their speed dropped while carrying wounded. Dead reckoning isn't glamorous, but, when you layer it over pacing and terrain association, you get a system that rarely fails. Anyone learning modern survival navigation can use it by tracking travel speed under different conditions and, making distance-time estimates part of every outdoor journey. These 7 navigation secrets weren't exotic. They were brutally practical, shaped by real survival conditions. Soldiers kept themselves and their units alive by training their senses, their minds, and their instincts to function when tools failed. And that's the biggest lesson of all: skill outperforms equipment. If you found this guide valuable and want more deep-dive historical survival content, make sure you subscribe to the Legacy of Survival channel and share this with someone who loves real history as much as you do.